March 11, 2019, 4:18 a.m., Interstate 35 near Laredo, Texas. The white Kenworth truck rolled past the last border checkpoint under sodium yellow lights, its manifest showing nothing unusual. Ceramic tiles from Monterrey, total weight 20,460 kg. Customs and Border Protection Agent Cole Merrick signed the clearance without hesitation. Cameras caught him walking away from his booth at 4:19 a.m., the same as he had done hundreds of times before. But by 5:30, everything had changed. The convoy assigned to escort the shipment north found the truck abandoned on the shoulder near mile marker 144. The driver was gone. The rear seals had been cut. Inside the steel cargo bay, the tiles were still there. But the $42 million in cartel cash hidden beneath them was not. By sunrise, Interstate 35 was locked down. Helicopters swept ranchland. Checkpoints froze. DEA agents launched Operation Ceramic Ghost, one of the largest highway interdictions in U.S. history. But Cole Merrick, the man who had cleared the truck, had vanished. His ID was still on his desk. His phone was off. And his apartment stood empty, drawers stripped bare. It was the largest single cartel payment ever stolen on U.S. soil, and it had disappeared without a shot fired. Before we dive into the unbelievable story of a low-level border agent who cleared one routine truck at 4:18 a.m., staged a fake roadside inspection less than half an hour later, diverted $42 million in cartel cash, and vanished before the DEA even knew what happened. Smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what comes next. Comment below where you're watching from, and tell me, would you have noticed the inside man hiding in plain sight? To understand how a quiet border officer walked away with $42 million and vanished before the DEA could even react, we have to go back. Cole Merrick's story didn't begin in the desert. It began in a modest two-bedroom rental on the east side of Laredo, Texas, a few miles from the Mexican border. Born in 1982 in El Paso, he grew up in a working-class household, enlisted in the U.S. Marine Corps after high school, and served as a military police officer. In 2010, he joined U.S. Customs and Border Protection, posted to the Columbia Solidarity Bridge. The job was repetitive but stable. Merrick inspected freight trucks, checked manifests, and waved thousands of vehicles across the border every month. He wasn't a man people noticed. Colleagues described him as the ghost. Quiet, punctual, never one to draw attention. He drove a 10-year-old Chevy Silverado, kept to himself, and rarely socialized outside the job. Divorced and childless, he lived alone and spent most evenings reading in a small diner off Saunders Street. But beneath that ordinary routine, something was shifting. Years of night shifts and stalled promotions had hardened into resentment. Overtime was cut. Younger, less experienced officers were promoted above him. Merrick watched colleagues take second jobs or leave the agency entirely. "You keep the border safe," he once told a coworker, "and the border forgets you exist." Working Gate C, one of the least desired posts on the bridge, he learned the border's rhythms better than anyone. He knew which manifests were real and which were doctored, which trucking firms paid extra for speed, and which shipments were waved through without a second glance. He could spot a forged seal from 30 feet away, and more importantly, he learned how rarely anyone bothered to look. It was a slow education in how a massive federal system actually worked. And where it didn't, inspections were rushed. Documentation went unchecked. Supervisors assumed the scanner logs matched the paperwork, and no one re-verified cargo once a truck cleared U.S. soil. Merrick began to see the entire border not as a wall, but as a series of predictable habits. In 2017, he was quietly reprimanded for a procedural irregularity, clearing a shipment that should have gone to secondary screening. Officially, it was a mistake. Unofficially, it was a revelation. No one questioned his decision. No one double-checked his work. The inspector himself was the system's weakest point and the most trusted. By 2018, Merrick's detachment had hardened into calculation. He was no longer just clearing trucks. He was watching the watchers, memorizing patterns, and testing boundaries. The system wasn't invincible. It was predictable. And predictability, he realized, could be exploited. It was this realization, born not from greed or desperation, but from years of invisibility, that set him on a path no one could have predicted, a path that would end with $42 million missing and a federal manhunt stretching across continents. By late 2018, Merrick had spent nearly a decade watching the border work, and more importantly, watching where it didn't. He noticed something most people in uniform never thought about. While everyone focused on the southbound flow of drugs into the United States, almost no one looked at the northbound flow of cash going back. The money, billions of dollars in cartel profit, often returned hidden in legitimate cargo, buried under layers of tiles, machinery, even produce. Once it cleared customs, no agency ever opened the truck again. That's where Merrick saw his opening. It started small. He began deliberately flagging certain trucks for random secondary inspections, then clearing them without even opening the doors. No one questioned it. In one case, he deliberately mismatched a cargo seal number on the manifest with the one on the truck. No alert was raised. The paperwork had been accepted without anyone reading past the first line. Another time, he delayed a shipment for 2 hours, citing a fictional inspection backlog. The trucking company complained, but no one looked deeper. Each experiment confirmed the same truth. Trust in the inspector was absolute. If he signed the manifest, the cargo became invisible. One night in October 2018, that theory was tested in a way Merrick hadn't expected. A driver named Silas McKinney, known in whispers as a cartel courier, was sent to Gate C. His truck, listed as carrying auto parts, had minor paperwork errors. Merrick flagged them, expecting to send McKinney back. Instead, the driver smiled and asked quietly, "You ever get tired of being the one checking other people's money?" Merrick didn't respond, but McKinney had seen something: boredom, resentment, maybe curiosity, and the seed was planted. Merrick went home that night thinking about the question: how much money had crossed his booth in 8 years? How many millions had passed inches from his hand? And if the system trusted him so completely, how hard would it be to make something disappear? Over the next few weeks, Merrick dug deeper. He traced the path of cartel cash as it left the U.S. and re-entered Mexico. He learned how shipments were logged into AC, the automated commercial environment, and how quickly records were archived after clearance. He realized that once a truck passed into U.S. territory, no physical audit took place unless a specific alert was triggered. If no alert was raised, the shipment was considered cleared forever. He also noticed a timing flaw. Once cargo cleared the Columbia Bridge, it had a 90-minute window before it reached its next federal checkpoint. Within that window, a truck could change drivers, change cargo, even change trucks entirely, and the system would never know. It was the kind of vulnerability only someone like Merrick could see, and he was the only one who could exploit it. McKinney reappeared in December 2018, this time with less subtlety. He handed Merrick a burner number written on a receipt and said, "If you ever want to stop clocking in for other people's money, call this." Merrick didn't throw it away. By the start of 2019, the idea had become something more than curiosity. Merrick wasn't thinking about if anymore. He was thinking about how. How to isolate a shipment, how to control its movement, how to make it vanish between 2 points the government believed were secure, and how to do it without leaving a trace. The answer, he realized, was simple. Don't fight the system. Use its trust against itself. All he needed was one shipment, one blind spot, and one moment when no one was watching the watcher. And by early spring, that moment was getting closer. By January 2019, Cole Merrick no longer thought like an inspector. He thought like a planner. The flaw was real, the window was real, and the shipment was on the calendar. One outbound load in early March, disguised as ceramic tiles, would carry an estimated $42,000 in cartel profit north before being laundered back through bogus import contracts. On paper, it was just freight. In practice, it was the bloodline of a drug empire. He would cut it. Week 1, Merrick created space between himself and whatever would follow. He used a shelf corporation, Talbot Logistics, LLC, formed months earlier by an online agent, to lease Warehouse 17, Cotulla Business Park, 387 County Road 4690. The lease listed agricultural storage. He paid the deposit in cashier's checks bought in 3 towns along US 83. He set up a prepaid electric account, ordered 2 used pallet jacks, 4 heavy tarps, and a heat sealer from a surplus site. No cameras, no internet. He brought in his own padlocks. Week 2. He needed hands but not talkers. Nolan Graves, 42, former National Guard truck driver, had steady nerves and money trouble. Merrick tested him first with dull work. Long waits, exact routes, silence. Graves delivered, at speed but without swagger. The second helper would not touch trucks at all. Ivy Callahan, 35, part-time bookkeeper, was linked quietly to supply money that moved through Laredo flea market stalls and export shops. She spoke in numbers, not names. Her part would begin after the cash went dark. Week 3. The real shipment was booked to move in a Kenworth T680, wearing the colors of a Monterey carrier. Merrick bought a 2015 T680 from a San Antonio reseller, using an intermediary and a counterfeit purchasing authorization. He repainted the cab to match the carrier's white and blue livery, ordered knockoff magnetic door logos, and installed DOT legal lighting. A salvage yard yielded a matching front bumper. VIN plates were shaved and restamped. It would not pass a forensic teardown, but it needed to pass a highway glance at 4:30 a.m. Week 4. Merrick mapped the 90-minute blind window that began once a truck cleared Columbia Solidarity Bridge and ended at the next federal choke point. He drove the frontage roads at night, logging mile marker 144 on I-35 as the safest pull-off, shallow grade, loose gravel, low traffic, and one-way in. He timed it 3 times from the bridge, 46 minutes, 44 minutes, 43 minutes. He shaved it further by staging 2 cones and a utility work merge sign he kept in the Silverado's bed. Anything official-looking buys a driver obedience and buys a thief time. On February 7th, CBP announced a surprise internal review. Supervisors would sample ace entries, camera pulls, and inspector notes. Merrick spent 2 nights rechecking his fall 2018 tests and found one mismatch. He had entered the wrong secondary bay number on a truck he never actually opened. He typed an addendum note and printed it at a public library to avoid network logs. The audit passed with nothing flagged. He went back to the bridge, outwardly calm, with his hands steady on the keyboard. The money men wanted to see the man they were paying. Silas McKinney told him to cross on a day off and leave his CBP phone at home. February 12, 1940, Merrick walked from a taxi stand near Avenida Cesar Lopez de Lara to a taqueria with a broken neon Coca-Cola sign. He sat in the back booth. McKinney arrived last, not first, with 2 enforcers who ordered soda and nothing else. No names, no promises in ink. They spoke in times and places. 42, McKinney said like a weight. Tiles, before dawn. Your end is 5. 2 now, 3 after we taste quiet. He slid a cheap flip phone across the table. You press once when the truck moves, twice when you're clear. If anything breaks, you walk away and never touch a border again. Merrick kept his eyes on the straw wrapper he was twisting. If the convoy changes, then you change first, McKinney said. You don't get a second try. One of the enforcers tapped a knuckle on the table. A small rhythm, not a threat, but a clock. Merrick left by a different door. He crossed back north with an empty pocket and a stomach like wire. That night he wrote the sequence on a diner napkin. Sign, detour, swap, split, then tore it into strips and flushed it 1 piece at a time. He needed practice that did not look like practice. Dry Run A, February 18th. Graves drove the empty decoy north at 2:50 a.m. Merrick staged cones at MM-144 and waved him into the gravel. Stopwatch running, they swapped cab for cab, then routed the decoy onward, while Merrick took the empty to Warehouse 17. Elapsed, 47:12. Acceptable. On the way home, red and blue lights hit Graves's mirrors outside San Antonio for a taillight out. The officer leaned in, flashlight tracing the dash. Graves handed over license and insurance. No cargo, no smell, no problem. A warning, then go. He called Merrick from a payphone, hands shaking only after the danger passed. Dry Run B, February 27th. This time Merrick added stress. He drove the decoy at legal speed but took the frontage exit late, forcing a sharper merge. In the dark, 1 cone fell. A pickup drifted too close and honked. Merrick held his palm up, 2 fingers pointed. Utility workers shorthand for slow. The pickup obeyed, elapsed, 4431. Better. He logged the misstep. Cones not enough. Add flasher bar. He bought a used amber light bar for $120 cash at a swap meet in Devine, TX, wired it to a cigarette socket, and stashed it under a blanket. At the same time, Callahan tested the post-heist plumbing, a $480,000 invoice from Talbot Logistics, TX, to Talbot Freight, NV, for equipment refurbishment, then a payment to Beltrade Holdings, Belize. A compliance officer at a regional bank flagged the pattern and fired a suspicious activity report. Callahan killed the path, waited 72 hours, and rebuilt the chain. Texas, Sun Key Commercial, Panama. Customs brokerage fees into Darren Gulf, FZC, Dubai. Advanced lease payments back to a U.S. escrow that would look like a refund. Same money, different lanes, softer language, microcontrols. Merrick drilled into the small stuff. The place's plans actually break. Paper. He printed Form 3461 copies for a backup ag inspection detour, complete with a forged USDA stamp he lifted from a PDF and laser printed onto a rubber pad. It would stand only at 5 feet in the dark. That was enough. Seals. He bought a pack of bolt seals with near sequential numbers. If anyone looked at the rear doors after the swap, they would see a clean number that matched the manifest pattern. Hands. Nitrile gloves, 2 sizes. Tarps folded to hide handprints. A bucket of powdered rosin to grip wet straps. Heat. A cheap infrared thermometer to check truck brakes before the stop. Glowing rotors tell a trooper you were moving too fast for the story you'll tell. Fire. A gallon of diesel and a road flare taped inside the decoy's bumper for a last-ditch burn. He hoped not to touch it. Every note went onto a flip card and into a plain brown envelope taped under his kitchen sink. He rotated the cards every 2 days, forcing himself to say each step out loud and to notice if any single instruction no longer made sense. When he caught one, call Ivy at par 507 first, he fixed it. No foreign calls before clearance. No signals that could be pulled from tower logs. On March 4th, a senior CBP officer stopped by Gate C and mentioned, too casually, that DEA had eyes on some northbound tiles. It was a rumor tossed like a joke. It landed like a stone. Merrick kept his face neutral, nodded and said, "Tiles. Always tiles." That night he checked his timeline again and adjusted the handoff speed. If the load had a tracker, and he could not know, time was not his friend. He shifted the warehouse stop to a 12-minute unload using pre-rigged skids and a cut-through plan that skipped pallet wrap entirely. Tiles would sit where tiles sat. The money was what moved. March 7-8 brought small storms and the last purchases. A handheld 2-tone siren that could bark a public works chirp and 4 contractor vests folded into a milk crate. Graves slept in his truck outside Cotulla, engine off, bonnet cooling in the night. Merrick dozed in a chair by the warehouse door with a pen light and a legal pad. Callahan, across town, wrote out 4 false invoices describing tile breakage reimbursement and stamped them with a rubber seal that said accounts payable. She had built 4 shells to catch the flow in narrow streams. Talbot Logistics, TX, Maverick Highway Services, NV, Sun Key Commercial, PA, Darren Gulf FZC, UAE. Small invoices pass. Big blocks get stared at. On March 9th, McKinney's burner chirped once. A prearranged signal meaning the load was committed and the driver briefed. There were no words. The second chirp would come only after the bridge. If it never came, everyone would pretend nobody knew anyone. Merrick's world narrowed to steps and seconds. He put fresh batteries in the flasher bar. He replaced the nitrile gloves after noticing a tear. He counted the bolt seals again, speaking the digits under his breath. He filled the Silverado at a station off Saunders Street where the clerk did not ask questions. He told himself 3 things he could still walk away from: the truck, the warehouse, the money. He could not walk away from the identity he had already spent. The records of who cleared what and when would never vanish. If he backed out, he would still look like a man who planned something. So he didn't back out. March 10th, 1820. Graves stood with his hand in his jacket pockets, rocking on his heels, eyes on the concrete. Merrick pointed at a drawn map. Bridge, MM 144, Kotula. You do not improvise. If you see blue lights, you stop and you become boring. If anyone talks, you give them name, license, insurance. You do not volunteer a single word about me or this place because you do not know them. Graves nodded once. And if the driver doesn't get out? He will, Merrick said. He'll be told to. That was McKinney's part. If he doesn't, you don't. You go home. They rehearsed the tool layout, bolt cutters, strap hooks, tarps folded to open in one motion. They timed a 4-crate transfer with empty boxes, 10:58, then a 6-crate, 14:12. Fast enough if nobody panicked, faster if they didn't fumble the straps. March 10th, 22:40. Ivy had her laptop shut. Nothing digital left open. Paper only. She pointed to arrows on a single sheet. It lands here, 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 and here, she said, tapping the names of shells. All 4 invoices go out day 2 as credits for broken freight. 3 days later, refunds are issued from Dubai back to separate U.S. accounts as lease deposits. It looks like a logistics company cleaning up a bad week. What if a bank calls? Merrick asked. They won't, huh? Not on credits that small, she said. And if they do, they'll talk to me, not you. He left her a prepaid phone anyway, and a single sentence to say if anything went sideways. Wrong account, issuing reversal now. Mundane words and calls. March 11th, 01:27 a.m. The city hummed low. Freight yards lit the sky in sodium orange. Merrick sat in the Silverado outside a coffee stand that never closed, drank black coffee that tasted like metal, and texted nobody. At 02:02, his burner vibrated twice. The truck had cleared Mexican export. He pulled onto Mines Road, headed for the bridge he had worked for 9 years, and felt the weight of the gate he had opened 1,000 times. 04:26 a.m. A gray Chevy Silverado merges into the flow. In the bed, 2 cones, a folding utility work. Merge sign, a cheap amber flasher bar wired to a cigarette socket. Merrick's eyes stay on the empty dark ahead. He knows the window. About 90 minutes before the next federal choke point. He needs 45. 04:42 a.m. gravel shoulder. Low ditch, no houses. He sets 1 cone at the white line, 1 10 yards back. The amber bar bleeds a soft blink across the asphalt. Merrick raises his palm at the bend. Headlights bloom. The Kenworth rounds the curve. The driver scanning for guidance like drivers do when something looks official at dawn. Merrick rotates his index finger in the universal circle for slow. The driver obeys, steers toward the cones, and stops where the sign tells him. Morning, Merrick says, neutral voice, reflective vest zipped. Agricultural detour. Quick inspection. Please set the brake and step out. Wait by the sign. The driver, late 20s, Monterey cap, jacket zipped against the chill, nods. He kills the engine, climbs down, and walks to the sign without complaint. He has done this before, somewhere else, with someone else. He does not ask questions. He does not want trouble. 04:43 a.m. 2 short circles in the air. Nolan Graves, staged a quarter-mile up in the decoy T680, rolls forward. In the mirror, Merrick can see the decoy's paint, the magnetic door logos, the legal lights. At a glance, it's the same truck. Graves eases past, parks 20 yards ahead. He steps out, pulls a contractor vest on, and opens the decoy's empty trailer. Merrick goes to the real truck's rear doors. He reads the bolt seal number, says it once, then cuts it clean with bolt cutters. The doors swing. Tiles sit stacked on pallets, shrink-wrapped tight, crates strapped with cheap nylon. Beneath the first row, tarps. Beneath the tarps, cash, bricks, vacuum sealed. Coffee grounds dust the linings to beat dogs that will never come. Merrick's stopwatch starts. 04:44:04:55 a.m. gloves on, no talking. They move with factory rhythm. Merrick frees a strapped crate. Graves drags it to the decoy's lip, and together they slide the pallet across steel to steel. 4 crates, then 6, then 10. Tiles stay where tiles sit. The money moves. A heat sealer hisses to fix any torn wrap. The crates go down in the same order to preserve weight balance. Sweat stings Merrick's upper lip despite the cool air. The driver by the sign shifts once, then stills. He checks his phone, looks at the cones, glances at Merrick's vest, and decides to be patient. The badge color, the tone, the posture, everything says official enough. 04:56 a.m. 30 miles away in a windowless room, a DEA analyst watches a grid of dots. One dot, tagged to an outbound commodities carrier, tiles, chirps as it deviates from route. The analyst scribbles a note, northbound variance. Flag. She pings a supervisor. The supervisor exhales. Wake ceramic ghost. Get highway patrol spun up. Don't spook it yet. Let me see 2 pings. 04:57, 05, and 04. American Graves hit rhythm. Crate 15 snags on a bent strap hook. Graves swears under his breath and swaps the hook. The amber flasher throws a lazy light across their hands. Merrick checks the road. 2 vehicles pass, slow, obeying the cones without question. He notes the brake heat with a cheap infrared thermometer. No glow. Good. It will match a truck that has been waiting. 05:05 a.m. The same DEA dot flares again, now off the main route by a fixed offset. Confirm drift, the analyst says. The supervisor points at a map. Call DPS, he says, but keep them soft. We want eyes before we want lights. Notify CBP Laredo. A second supervisor, already dialing, adds, ask for Gate C Watch Commander. Name on clearance? Merrick, Cole, the voice on the phone replies, eyes dropping to the log. The room goes quiet a full second longer than normal. Pull his schedule, someone says. 5:06:05:10 a.m. 24 crates moved. Merrick pushes the last pallet into the decoy, slaps on a new bolt seal with a number close to the manifest pattern, and wipes a smudge with his sleeve. Graves drops the trailer doors, latches them. Merrick walks to the driver at the sign. All set, he says. Follow the cones back in. There's road work up ahead. You'll rejoin northbound in a mile. The driver nods, relieved. He never looks into either trailer. He climbs back into his cab, the empty one now, and pulls away, rolling back onto the lane as instructed, none the wiser. 5:11 a.m. Graves pulls the decoy out first, now loaded with $42,000 in concealed cash. Merrick falls in behind in the Silverado. They take the next exit, no signs, just a narrow county road, toward Warehouse 17 in Cotulla. The real truck, empty of money and still heavy with tiles, follows the lane north like nothing changed. 05:29 a.m. A Texas DPS unit near San Marcos keys a soft intercept. No lights, no sirens. White Kenworth, T680, blue stripe, northbound. Possible diverted cargo. Maintain visual. Await DEA. The trooper merges 3 cars back, runs the plate, gets a clean return, and holds his speed. He has stopped 1,000 trucks for less. Today, he waits. 05:37 a.m. Graves backs the decoy to the loading lip. The overhead light stays off. Merrick slides the door 3 feet. Enough to work, not enough to silhouette movement on the street. Pallet jack up, crate to floor. They cut wrap at corners only to keep stacks from spilling. Cash bricks come up cold, still smelling faintly of plastic and coffee. Merrick counts rows, not bills. He wants speed, not certainty. 12 minutes is the goal. He checks his watch at 05:43. Ahead of pace, 05:44. AM 4 rental cargo vans sit nose out along the fence. Dallas plates, Houston plates, a Florida plate on a van with a sun-faded bumper, and one with local tags. Each has a folded blanket, a stack of box liners, and a nitrile glove box on the dash. Merrick pushes marked totes to each, 10 to 100, 9.8, 6.9, 14.8 mounts, uneven splits to defeat pattern analysis. He speaks each number only once, low, to himself. 5:49 a.m. With the decoy now empty, Merrick drives at 18 miles down a farm service road. He pours a gallon of diesel across the cab floor, cracks a road flare, and sets it under the seat. He watches the first lick of flame take, then walks back to the Silverado without running. The sky to the east is beginning to gray. 05:52 a.m. At Warehouse 17, Graves wipes the last strap marks with a rag. Merrick shuts the bay, kills the interior light, and walks the vans one by one. Maps in the visor, don't speed, no lane heroes, no phones. He looks each driver in the face. They were found for this morning and only this morning. No names he needs to remember. 5:55 a.m. The vans roll at 1-minute intervals. Van A takes the access road toward Dallas, Van B toward Beaumont, Van C toward Phoenix, Van D toward Brownsville, where cash can vanish into 1,000 smaller currents before daylight. Merrick lets the dust settle, then drives away last, lights off until the second bend. 06:07 a.m. The DPS trooper finally lights up the original truck for a gentle stop, broken taillight as the polite reason. The driver pulls to the shoulder, hands shaking a little from the surprise. Paperwork is clean. The trooper asks to look at the cargo. The driver, confused, agrees. Tiles, tiles, tiles. No obvious hidden compartments. No cash. The trooper feels a small wrong he cannot name. He clears the driver with a warning and radios the room. It's clean. The DEA supervisor swears softly. We're late. 06:10 a.m. A neighbor across the hall later remembers a door open to an empty space. Drawers bare, closet hangers swinging. The Silverado will be found later in long-term parking near San Antonio International. For now, it glides past a shuttered tire shop and vanishes behind a billboard. 06:18 a.m. Van B, the one loaded with 9-point Peters, runs with a bad bulb the driver didn't notice. A county deputy sees the faint flicker, pulls out, and hits the lights out of habit. The van slows, then pulls onto a wide shoulder. The driver's breath fogs the cab. He rehearses the story in his head. Contractor, boxes, rush job. License and registration. Sir, it's a rental. I'm on a delivery. What's in the back? Tile pads, packing foam. Can I? The deputy smells nothing. He sees nothing, until the driver fumbles the glove box, and a loose bolt seal drops to the floor mat with a metallic tick. The deputy notices the shape without knowing why it matters. He asks the driver to step out, requests consent to look inside. The driver says yes because saying no feels like a confession. He opens the rear doors, boxes, liners. Nothing obvious, until the deputy taps a corner and hears the weight. A call goes out. The first box comes down. The liner peels back. The money stares back, banded and vacuum wrapped. The smell of coffee grounds now unmistakable. Show me your hands. 06:24 a.m. Red and blue wash the van's white interior. A second unit arrives. The total count will take hours, but the first field estimate comes quick, about 9.8 million. The driver sits on the curb, head in his hands, repeating the same sentence. I thought it was packing. I just drive. 06:31 a.m. Van A blends into commuter traffic. Van C clears a way station without a glance. No cargo declared, no reason to stop. Van D drifts south, leaving the interstate for smaller roads that fall under fewer eyes. 3 streams continue. One is dammed. 06:42 a.m. The DEA supervisor circles, recovered, 9.80 member on a legal pad and underlines it twice. Who signed the clearance? He asks again, as if the name might have changed in the last 20 minutes. It has not. Merrick. Phones ring across agencies. A task force name, Ceramic Ghost, goes from a plan on paper to a thing people are shouting into handsets. 06:55 a.m. A glow on the horizon marks the decoy's death. A rancher later reports a burned semi, smoking like a bad barbecue, and a city truck driving away slow. By the time anyone gets there, the fire has eaten the cab clean. There is no cargo to weigh. The trailer is empty. 7:22 a.m. Graves wipes the door handles again, using a fresh rag this time, though he knows it is ritual more than science. He takes a rental SUV from the fence line and drives west without hurrying. In Merrick's head, a list repeats, return keys, no. Wipe prints, already done. Cameras, none. He has made one promise to himself. Touch nothing he doesn't have to touch. 08:03. A marked units weave through traffic with lights off. A DPS aircraft lifts, banking east. They are looking for a van that already sits behind police tape 40 minutes away. The remaining 3 vans have cleared the circle. Each will split its load once more before noon. Bundles will be spread across 8 vehicles, then 16, then cash businesses that can drink millions in small bills. By the end of the day, most of the money will be unfindable without a witness and a miracle. The watch commander stares at an empty desk with an ID card on it and a login that ended at 4:19 a.m. Find him, he says, to no one and to everyone. By early 9:30, CBP suspends Cole Merrick pending investigation. The first internal email uses the phrase possible complicity and the word unprecedented twice. Ivy Callahan receives a single-word text on a prepaid rain. That is the go she is waiting for. It does not mention amounts or routes. It does not need to. She waits 48 minutes more, enough time for police chatter to settle into a pattern, then forwards the first credit memos to the shells. Tile breakage reimbursement, pallet spoilage, handling corrections. 4 invoices, 4 small amounts. The language is boring on purpose. Boring is safe. Evidence texts lift the first vacuum brick into a bin and write 100 on the inventory line. Again and again until the hands cramp. The number that matters, $9,800,000, goes into a single box on a whiteboard. Cameras from 3 stations sit outside the tape. No one gives a quote. No one wants to say we got some when the only real answer today is we lost most. 12:06 p.m. A camera aimed at row F records a gray Silverado easing between 2 SUVs at 5:38 a.m. and does not record a driver getting out. The angle is wrong, the lens dirty. At 12:06 p.m., an airport patrol writes a chalk mark on a rear tire like they do to every third vehicle. The plate runs to a Laredo address. No alert pings yet. It will. McKinney does not call. He does not need to. The rule is 2 hours of silence after motion. If there was failure, it would be loud by now. There has been noise, Beaumont, but not enough to change what's next. He sends a single emoji to a number in Mexico City. The meaning is simple. Paid. 01:33 p.m. A bank manager signs off on 4 small credit notes to 4 forgettable companies. The compliance system yawns. Amounts are under thresholds, the payees are domestic, the justifications read like a week that broke a few pallets and annoyed a few customers. Somewhere else, a different compliance officer will connect 2 dots a week from now and file a suspicious activity report. It will be too late to matter. 02:10 p.m. 2 task force SUVs drift near Van A's last known corridor without knowing it. Van A is already empty. Its driver offloaded half at a storage unit under an aunt's name and half to a sedan that never touched a toll road. By 03:00 p.m., the sedan will become 2 sedans. By sunset, the money will be in walls, under floors, inside furniture, and in duffel bags in apartments that look like every other apartment in a city of millions. A CBP supervisor, voice flat, reads the same line to each agency partner. We can confirm Agent Merrick cleared the vehicle at 04:18 a.m. and left his duty station at approximately 04:20 without authorization. We have suspended his access. The reactions are the same. A breath, a pen tap, a chair scrape. No one wants the sentence that comes next. Someone says it anyway. This is an inside job. 4:20 p.m. A county deputy notices a fresh padlock on an industrial unit that did not have a padlock yesterday. He notes it in a little notebook and drives on. Warehouse 17 breathes heat into the late afternoon. Inside, nothing remains except scuffed concrete and a scrap of shrink wrap stuck to a floor seam. 05:38 p.m. A spokesperson steps to a microphone and says only what can be said. We have recovered approximately $9.8 million in U.S. currency believed to be connected to an ongoing investigation. Because this is an active matter, we will not be taking questions. The cameras want a name. They will not get his name today. 06:12 p.m. Word spreads through channels Merrick cannot hear. Task Force Ceramic Ghost is now live in 4 states. DPS is reading plates in bulk. CBP OPR has placed holds on 3 employees' accounts, and Merrick's login is frozen and flagged. Warrants are being typed. Phones are being pinged. Highway units are rolling slow past every white van with dull hubcaps. Merrick knows none of it in real time. He knows only his list and his silence. The prepaid on his knee remains dark. The second prepaid, taped inside the Silverado's airbox, will never ring. He changes jackets, changes sidewalks, changes the way he holds his shoulders. A camera records a man who could be him and could be 100 other men moving down a bus platform with a duffel that looks like every other duffel. He does not look back. RU 7:40 p.m. On the whiteboard, $42,000 left a border in the belly of a truck. $9,800,000 lies behind tape in Beaumont. $32,100,000 is unrecovered. Under subjects, someone writes Merrick, CBP, in block letters, then adds Graves and Callahan with question marks. Under unknowns, a supervisor writes McKinney and underlines it twice. In the strip of sky between warehouses, the day drains out. The burned decoy cools to a black frame in a pasture. The real truck reaches its scheduled yard late, the driver filing a timing note and nothing else. The 4 vans that became 3 that became 8 are now 21 vehicles you will not tell from any other vehicle if you pass them at a light. What remains is the sound of a plan finishing its last step, disappear, and the sound just behind it, a city of radios trying to catch up. Perfect. Now we move to the final chapter. Here comes AC Befa, collapse or escape. Campihi 7, Ional, 8,000 chars. Same cold investigative Netflix tone, continuing seamlessly from the end of Act 4 and finishing with the final line, and then he was gone. In the weeks that followed, the case that began with a single clearance stamp turned into one of the largest internal investigations in Customs and Border Protection history. Every layer of Cole Merrick's life was pulled apart. His phone records, bank accounts, browser history, even the contents of his trash. None of it brought investigators closer to the man they were trying to find. Investigators widened the net. Bus station logs, long-distance train records, and car rental agreements across southern Texas were reviewed. A handful of transactions raised interest. A cash purchase of a used sedan in Eagle Pass, a one-way bus ticket from San Antonio to El Paso bought under a false name. But none could be definitively linked to Merrick. Each was plausible. None was certain. Search warrants followed. Merrick's apartment on the north side of Laredo was entered and cataloged. Drawers stood empty, closets bare. A coffee mug and a single chair were all that remained in the kitchen. A neighbor reported seeing Merrick the evening before the heist carrying a single duffel bag down the stairwell. He was not seen again. The financial picture was equally elusive. No large transfers appeared in Merrick's accounts. No sudden purchases, no unexplained debts cleared. Analysts working with the DEA followed the money that had been seized from the Beaumont van and attempted to trace it backward. It led to a series of shell companies with innocuous names, each dissolved within days of the seizure. One account in Belize had received a $480,000 transfer, but that too disappeared into a chain of trusts stretching across Panama, Dubai, and Cyprus. Nothing tied back to Merrick directly. He had built layers deep enough that even knowing they existed did not help unwind them. Pressure from Washington mounted. Task Force Ceramic Ghost expanded to more than 60 agents, analysts, and forensic accountants. CBP's Office of Professional Responsibility issued over a dozen subpoenas and traced more than 300 financial transactions linked to tile distributors, logistics companies, and cross-border brokers. None of them connected conclusively to Merrick. The DEA believed that much of the missing $32.2 million had already left the United States within days of the heist. Some of it likely crossed back into Mexico in small amounts hidden inside legitimate commercial shipments. Some was almost certainly laundered through U.S.-based businesses, car washes, check cashing services, and used car dealerships, before being wired overseas in sums too small to trigger automated alerts. The rest, they concluded, would remain hidden in physical cash stockpiles for months or even years, slowly fed into circulation where no one would notice. As the months passed, the investigation shifted from active pursuit to historical reconstruction. We could chart almost every step of the operation: the clearance at 0418, the stage stop at 0442, the warehouse unload at 0537, the interception of one van at 0618, the task force launched by 0910. We could map the vulnerabilities exploited and the opportunities taken. What we could not do was fill the blank space that followed. No charges were ever filed against Cole Merrick. No confirmed border crossing bore his name. On the official record, his employment was terminated and his security credentials revoked. Beyond that, he ceased to exist. The last confirmed image of Cole Merrick shows him walking alone across a parking lot just after dawn, a duffel bag slung over his shoulder. There are no cameras after that point. No digital trace, no paper trail, no witness whose testimony stands up to scrutiny. And then he was gone.